figure out what makes you happy. And, if you can figure whatever that makes you happy, if you know the reason why it makes you happy, I'm hoping that you can reach out and help shine a light on whatever that is.
We are live right now. So yes, we are live. Thank you for anyone that is going to join the call or watch it after. Basically, it's a new episode of Robert Spotlight. What is a Robert Spotlight? It's the podcast when I give the mic to any Web3 actor. And today I have the pleasure to have Wilson, aka Network Social. So Wilson, thank you to be here.
Thank you for having me. It's
yes,
an experience for sure.
So yes, it's going to be fun. A little chat between all together. So first, we need to say to people how we met all together.
Yeah, pretty much it's through like the V Friends community, and like we both happen to be Hangout hawks, and it kind of started as this thing where Gary Vee, he hosted, he offered this NFT where whoever bought into this NFT get to have a Zoom call with him for 5 times a year.
Yes.
And, like we started off kind of doing that first, but then we branched off and started talking about each other's lives and then see how we can build something more special. And, Robert has been amazing in that he sees kind of like the potential that we have, and he comes at you in the DMs and, try to push you to kind of pursue what you want to do. And I think, that's like kind of like the origin story of like the Hawks, of how, we're a bunch of individuals trying to do something together and like slowly figuring it out. And I feel like, after VCon, it's something where we're kind of pushing forward a lot faster than previously before we actually met everybody.
Yes, so it's cool. Yeah, yes, we met basically with thanks to Gary Vee, who owns the project Refrain, and as Wilson was saying, we are both Hawk holders, and basically the Hangout Hawk token, it's really with the mindset of entrepreneur people, and so right now there is like close to 100. Maybe less, but it's like there is on the blockchain 125 token. So that will be the max people that will be able to join the group. And it's how we met. So it's fun. And I do believe that Wilson have a great story to share with everyone. And it's why I wanted to have him, on the podcast. So it's fun to have you. Let's talk about your project, Network Social.
Because I've never been an entrepreneurial guy, and even with like the whole Gary Vee and NFTs, I kind of accidentally stumbled in on it, because for me I was always just like working like regular jobs. Like right before the end of 2020, I got laid off from my job at like Chase, which was something where it was almost like a relief, but also like your world is like falling in on you at the same time, where you have that comfort level of having the steady income, but you also don't have that like satisfaction of feeling like you're doing a lot with your life. And when I got laid off, I just got really lucky with the market and everything in general, where I wasn't really financially insecure. I was more like emotionally and like I don't know if spiritually, but kind of like we're talking about the Matrix, right? Where it feels like every day you're doing that job and you're just getting by, and it's not that you're not happy, you're content, but you also feel like you're missing a little bit of like that kind of spark that drives you to do more. And I guess like, all that led me to a journey of like buying this commercial space in Queens, New York, which I got like a great deal on. And it's like a big space. And my idea was to try to create it a kind of, it's almost like a fabrication lab of like developing entrepreneurship, where people can think up ideas and I'll provide them with the resources and the spaces to execute it. And then they can do pop-up events and just test it out. But I think I quickly realized that for a lot of people, it's really hard to get at that like kind of mindset of I shouldn't do something because of all the things that go wrong, right? Sometimes we shine a spotlight on all the difficulties of why something can go wrong instead of what can go right. and
Yes.
it kind of paralyzes us to do that. So I'm hoping to build a community of people who, want to break out of that chain, like Matrix references, like take that red pill for like a little bit, change your life for a little bit and test it out. You don't have to go full crazy, and figure out like a kind of a business model that can make it a win-win situation where one side doesn't feel like they're taking advantage of the other side. So the space has like a bunch of different rooms, like, one for like, nutrition, one for health and wellness, fitness, one for like technology and computers, one for creativity, and one for just like hanging out. And I'm hoping to have these be templates where someone can walk in and, see their vision, rearrange it to what they need, and, test out their ideas and see what happens and go on from there. But we're still super early. I think, right now the space is there. A lot of the equipment's there. We have like a lot of 3D printers, virtual reality stuff. I'm a really big tech guy, so I like to kind of introduce tech to people, and, whatever problems they have, try to find a solution if it's there already. And if it's not, see like how hard is it to find a solution for their problems.
So thanks. It's an amazing vision, basically what you try to set up. For me, I see that as you try to pull all together like a blueprint to anyone to come and be able to achieve anything. So it's like I see your vision as an activation space. You need resources. We go on your place, and basically we can activate and grab resources. It's how I view your vision.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of that nudge, right? That to push people over the edge of like, we all have something that we're super passionate about that, like, you can watch endless videos of and learn how to do. But sometimes it's almost like Twitch and streaming, right? Like people watch people play video games, but then sometimes they can't play it themselves. It's almost like it's so hard to figure out so much stuff in this world. And it feels like a lot of times when you ask people, people say like, just Google it, or like, you should know this already. Stop asking me. I kind of want this to be a safe place for people to, have all that hate and ego or whatever, put it down a little bit and just like try to talk to each other. Like we're kind of human, that like we don't know everything, and, just a place where we can let our guards down and learn. And then like, people that are good at stuff, they should have a platform to teach. We should try to shine a spotlight on the good instead of all the bad. Like right now in the world, yes, there's so much spotlight on the bad that it's literally holding us back from doing anything, right? Like not even going outside and spending time together with people. It's this weird balance of like, both sides are kind of technically right, but their conviction is so high on their beliefs that, I don't know if it's the algorithms, like, kind of reinforcing you by watching the same videos on YouTube or whatnot. But the solution has to be somewhere in the middle, right? There has to be a compromise. And it kind of sucks that like the extremes are so loud that, the really good voices in the middle are sometimes like left out. And, that's kind of my goal. I don't see myself as someone that's, the one to have the spotlight on me. I feel like, I recognize what makes people special. And it's that little spark that you see that, once you bring up a topic, they can go on forever about it. And then like have them share that what makes whatever they're passionate about, what makes it special with everybody else. And that's how community gets built, right? Whether it's behind anime, board games, video games, yes, woodworking, creativity, art. Once you share with people why this thing is special and they finally get it, they stop shitting on whatever you enjoy. The world can only be a better place, right? Unless it's like horrible stuff like, I don't know, like racism or trying to destroy the world. Like, like we just have to find a way to emphasize and put a spotlight on the good, because like the bad right now, like, the wars, and it's just so insane to me in that like we're in an age where you could 3D print like literally everything, right? Anything you want, just you can fabricate something from your mind and put into reality. But we focus on like, who has the most money, who has the most like oil, when the world at its lowest point, let's go try to take someone down a peg and like take that spot. And, if we all work together, we could achieve amazing things. But then, that human nature of like survival and like unintentional greed, it's sometimes like we have to put our perspective in a better mindset of how can we push each other up and move up at the same time, instead of just trying to climb on top of each other and make it. A lot of people tell me I'm crazy. I can see why, right?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's We lived in a world where, you know, it's survival of the fittest. And, you know, it's weird because until I met like a lot of the Hawks, a lot of people at VCon, I was still one of those people, right? Like that mindset, like as much as I want to say, like, I want to be a good person, there's a lot of things in my head that I know I'm only doing it to make myself feel better, to validate myself. And, you know, like talking to you, it's weird. Like a lot of like you, Emil, like Antsy, Darby, just hearing your stories through Zoom, it's not the same. You know,
Yes,
you
yes,
see it
for
in
sure.
person, you get that, like that personal connection. It's almost like, you know, you buy into like, you know, kind of this mindset of like most people think it's like self-help, but then when you actually do it, it's just like it's almost like life changing. It's where you feel like you're in the next level now, and you're ready to finally start being a person. Like I decided to stop being that angsty teenager and say like, oh, how, like, you know, the world is unfair or whatever, and just like do it and see what happens. You know,
Yes.
if it hits the fan, you know, I'll always be ready. You know, if I go down to $0, I think I'll be okay, just because I have more opportunities than most of the world, and that's something that I've always had the perspective of, but it's always been inside my head because the world tells you you're wrong. So I see that shift, that mindset shift of, you know, we're looking to the future, and, you know, I'm excited to be part of that ride. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. What you just say give a lot of perspective. You know, it's I will have a little bit struggle to try to summarize what all do you have said because everything was legit basically. But I do get what you try to say, and it's really a game of perspective and basically only believe on yourself. You know, it's like if you don't believe on yourself, who is going to believe in you? So yes, I'm totally agree with you. Do you want to make like a walkthrough of each room of your space?
Yeah. So right now it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a mess, but like the kind of outline is there, right? Like I've been dealing a lot more of the kind of building issues and like fixing up the place and organizing. It's really hard when you're kind of doing it yourself and you don't have that timeline. But so the first room, it's kind of the reception area in the first half, and in the back, my vision for it, it's almost like, you know, how dads have their garages or their little space where they tinker with stuff. So in the back, I want it to be kind of like a little bit of a workshop where there's tools like woodworking tools, there's 3D printers, there's CNC machines, there's laser cutters, and it's a good place for, you know, the kind of, I'm getting to the age where the dad mindset is coming, where you feel like you learn a little bit of something, you think you're an expert. So then there's a place for people to just go in and try out tools and like, you know, have experts, you know, teach them responsibly so they don't chop a finger off or something kind of crazy. So, you know, the first room is meant to be kind of like a little bit of a fabrication lab. If you have a concept of something you want to build, learn how to build something, make something new into this world, this is a place where you have the tools and equipment that, you know, might cost a couple hundred to $1,000, you know, for that one tool, and you can learn how to use it, have a professional that knows how to use it, like teach you. Yeah, it's a little weird because there's all these like laws and like really scared of getting sued in the US. So I have to kind of put a lot of those rules in place for something like this to exist. But yeah, that's the first rule. The first room, more of
Yes.
a kind of like a lab fabrication kind of thing. Second room, I have an open space. I'm thinking for health and wellness, anything in that kind of realm where in the back there's gym equipment, not enough for a full gym, but enough for, you know, let's say someone wants to work on personal training, learn how to, you know, shoot content for personal
Okay.
training or anything health related. In the front, it can be more of like yoga stuff, Zumba, whatever that just needs a little bit of open space. And each of these rooms aren't like super big. They're, you know, like a little around like 500 square feet, more or less. So I have to kind of be smart with the space. And, you know, I'm treating it as more of a small community, you know,
Okay.
around like 8 people, you know, is a good size where it's intimate enough to kind of like ask each other questions if they need help, but not like so much where you feel like you're lost in the crowd, so that like each person gets individual attention. So that's the second room, more of health and wellness. The third room, I'm trying to make it into like a mini kitchen, but right now it's more of like a pantry where there's fridges, I actually just bought a bunch of stuff from IKEA to kind of redo like a lot of the cabinetry,
Yes.
and make it a little more legit. But what I see this being as like a place where anything kind of like food related, like baking, cooking, if there's something you're passionate about, like, you know, there's a way to learn about techniques, you know, even technology, right? Like this is like a French thing, sous vide, right? I remember when I first learned it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, you just, it sounds kind of gross because you're boiling water, you're boiling food in a bag at a precise temperature. But like when you make stuff like steak, it's amazing where it's that perfect temperature and you take it out of the bag and then you sear it, or you could blowtorch it to get that like crust. A lot of people don't know about these techniques, right? Or even really old ones, like, you know, pressure cookers. It can like cook meat really quickly. So I bought all these like kind of food tech equipment to introduce people to. Air fryers, you know, it's one of these things where older Asian communities, like, they might not understand all these technology things and they think it's a bunch of like bullshit or whatever. But then when they try it, they're like, oh, they're so cool. So, you know, I want those moments where people realize what's out there and see what they can, give them the tools, see what they can make out of it. And yeah, that the health and wellness, I'm sorry, the food and nutrition thing is more, yes, preserving recipes for the older generation and have the new generation kind of reinvent that a little bit, right?
There's something like a legacy, right?
Yeah, okay. I actually had an idea a long time ago where I wanted to create like a network of like grandmas to just like make food for people, right? Because that's what they love to do. And it's so sad that like at a certain age where they feel like they become a burden, they kind of like shut themselves out. But they also need that attention, so they'll guilt you and say like, "Hey, you don't come visit me or whatever." But then when you come visit them, like, it's this awkwardness of like you don't know what to say, you don't know how to relate. So like having these things to do with them is just going to be so amazing and game changing. And we need to shine a spotlight on that past where, you know, if we don't record some of what they taught us, it'll be lost forever, right? Yes. And yes, like I'm really scared of that happening. So like in this age of like blockchain, you know, imagine like if I made an NFT with my grandma's recipes and then just like stay in there forever, even if no one like looks at it, right?
Yes. At least it's here. At least it's here.
Yeah, it could be for me, right? Like I'll pass it down generation to generation and just look on the blockchain and it's like, oh, this is a recipe and I could try making it. And my like child 100 years in the future, like, you know, my great grandchildren could be like making that same thing. You know, hopefully there's still chickens around that time. And it's not like, you know, 3D printed plastic. but like, it's one of those things where, you know, there's so much beauty that gets lost because we don't speak up enough. So yeah, sorry, it's the ADHD kicking in, but that's the.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's the third room. Okay, so that's more for like food kind of related things. Fourth room, it's more tech based. I have a bunch of computers, VR headsets. I want to make a little studio in the back where if people want to edit like audio and video stuff, they have a private room for that. But it's more of, you know, I think people don't realize how amazing computers are and how every year it's constantly improving. You know, we're able to cram more like performance into smaller things. So, you know, people might think like, I only need one computer, like that's all I need. But when you attach a computer to anything, you know, that it almost automates things. So when people learn that, like, in technology, if you can attach technology to anything, it can cut away the boring manual stuff that no one wants to do. You know, that's what AI kind of is, right? Like, it sounds like this like supercomputer that like knows everything, but it doesn't really know everything. It knows everything you give it. So the more information you give it, all it does is it's kind of like similar to blockchain, right? Like, it's all there, but it's a counting system where a computer could just go search for it quickly. Our brain takes like an hour to think about it, but then a computer, there's no delay sometimes. You know, it could look through that millions of information and find that one thing you need. And right now it takes a lot longer, but as computers and chips get better performance and smaller, it should be able to, you know, pull a lot more. It's one of like how we feel like, oh, it's 5G. How many Gs do we need? We just keep on needing more because the quality gets better. You know, videos become clearer, audio transcribes, there's less lag. You know, videos like even Zoom calls, right? Like, you know, this kind of delay of me having to wait 2 seconds to hear what you say so I don't like talk over you and you don't talk over me. That's going to be less and less. And it's just amazing what it's going to be. And I'm so excited for that. You know, technology is one of those things where, you know, people feel like it's going to destroy the world, and it might, but that really depends on how we if we kind of ignore it and try to suppress it, you know, the people that don't understand will understand even less. And again, it's going to create two sides of like, you know, nature versus like technology. And instead of fighting each other, we have to find that balance where we don't let technology take over the world, and, you know, don't let like a few bad actors that, you know, are only improving it for greed. We have to kind of not put them in place, but just tell them, we're not trying to take that away from you, but let's try to change our mindset a little bit of how we can be inclusive and make more instead of exclusive, and have you make all the decisions. And when you reach a certain point where you're too successful that everybody's scared of you, you know, we need people to bring them back down. Like people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, like they were heroes to us at one point, but then, you know, all that negativity it almost feels like they're turning into like lesser versions of themselves, and they're losing hope. And it's a little sad to me in that, like, you know, in the beginning of like 2020, I finally realized what made them so special. It's that like they had a greater purpose of trying to save the world when everybody says it's impossible. There's so much negativity that gets put on them, whether it be social media or whatever, that it drives them to start competing with each other and competing with their own customers. Healthy communities of just complaining instead of figuring out how to work together. That's why, again, VeeFriends and what Gary's building, it feels so special in that we all have that. It doesn't matter how we get there, but we're hoping to elevate each other somehow. And it's not easy, right? Some days that like kind of mindset of the real world pulls you back down. You kind of go back into that mindset, but then we need this kind of community. Like I need you sometimes to pull me out of that funk. I need the other Hawks, need other like other VeeFriends, just the amazing people that, you know, we kind of let our guard down, right? We showed a lot of who we are that we don't even show to our regular friends and family, to kind of put our minds back into the perspective of helping people. So yeah, the fourth room is technology based, you know, anything tech related. I want people to just showcase, learn the basics first, and then just discover what's out there. Because once you go down that rabbit hole, you start thinking, holy crap, this is the world now. This technology, this is crazy. Like, is this really the Matrix? Like, is this just a VR simulation? All the stuff that Elon Musk or the other people joke about, you know, like you start thinking about it too much, like, oh man, that's actually might be a possibility one day. And like, you know, we're able to live almost a second life with things like virtual reality, which is, it sounds scary, but it also sounds amazing where like you're older, right? You can skydive, you could do all these things where like you're not really risking that much, but you can still at least try to experience it. Yeah, like I really want to introduce this to especially older people that will appreciate so much more, because they come from a time where, right, they were like trying to survive, they're trying to eat, you know, they're just playing with sticks. To now just put on a headset and be transported to another reality, it's scary, but it's also beautiful at the same time. So that's the fourth. It's more of like kind of a community creative space where I think creativity gets a lot of like kind of flack, like when I was growing up, in that, you know, if you study art or anything kind of creative base, you're like, you know, when you graduate, you're just going to be like on the street selling paintings or like singing songs. And it's one of those things where I kind of believe that. So I went into finance, you know, just like money, money, money. But now just see how much in demand creativity is, with like digital marketing, digital media. But again, it's a little sad in that like it's so oversaturated by demand that they lose a lot of that passion. So I want this kind of be a place where people that are great at these skills, like whether it be digital art, regular art, you know, take a little bit of that personal, I don't want to say pretentiousness, but more of like that pride, right? Like that, you know, only I can do it, and share that with regular people that might lack that creativity. Give them that paintbrush to just go at it and see what happens, even if it's ugly, right? Like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and you know, whether I like it or not, someone might. But if they never create it, it will never be there. So that, you know, the fifth room is more of like creative base where people can just go at it. You know, paint nights, Gardening things like those little terrariums. There's so many of these things right now that I just want to figure out a kind of easy price point that I won't go bankrupt myself from like trying to fund this thing. And, people get more than what they pay for. Right now, sometimes like, you're paying $30, $40 to go to a bar and then draw a painting. We have that it's really big in New York where people just paint something together and there's an artist that directs you. But then you end up spending another $100 on liquor. I kind of want to take a little bit of that consumerism out there and give a little more of enjoyment, right? Like I don't need all the money in the world to be happy. I think I don't need that much, honestly. So I want to figure out how we can start giving these experiences that certain people can afford, bring that down a lot so that like, we get that kind of enjoyment without that thing in our head saying, oh, I just spend this much money on something. When you take that out of it, it enjoys it so much more. It's almost like a fancy meal, right? Like, I take my parents out to food sometimes and they always say, no, like, I don't want to do it because they say they don't like change, right? But once they try it, they're like, oh, this is amazing. Until they look at the bill and they see like, how much we pay for this? Oh, this sucks. But then it's again, like, it's a money mindset that, sometimes we just have to change in that you can't let money ruin the enjoyment of moments that we have together because our time's so short. So yeah, fifth room is creativity. And in the last room, sixth room, it's meant for sharing time together. So it's kind of like
a hangout.
It's like a hangout room. Yeah, pretty much. So it's like couches. There's like a good like an OLED TV, the LG one. So where people that might not have ever seen it before, they can see, holy crap, this is what like rich people TVs look like. Just have that experience of like you can watch movies together. There's a bunch of board games. You can play board games together. Like I have like the Xbox Series X where people just like play video games together. And it's something where people could just spend time together without, just like, talk about kind of like, which like, I don't like, I physically can't drink that much, right? Like I could drink like one shot and I'm like done for the rest of the day, or I look like I'm done. But like, that's just what I tell people so that they don't kind of pressure me to drink more. But like, that's how I got through my wedding, right? Like everybody thought I was like wasted, but I literally just drank the champagne from my toast. And then like, I get really red. So then everybody's like, oh, this guy's done. And that's when like, you kind of like, it's like a Superman moment where you take off your glasses and you go like, I can do whatever I want because I just use alcohol as an excuse. Not like, in the kind of sketchy way. It's like the letting loose, right? Like it's so hard to let loose because you're so scared of what people think about you. That like you have this kind of paralysis of sharing who you are as a person. So yeah, last room, hangout space of just whatever it is, just find an activity for people to just bond. And I'm really hoping it's something like, the Gary Vee community where young, old, whatever it is, there's no judgment and we can figure out how to share the best of ourselves and identify the worst of ourselves and figure out how to not necessarily eliminate it, but keep it under control. Because I think there is no real perfection. Everybody's perception of perfection is different. And we have to kind of adjust it so that realize that like we're all perfectly imperfect people. And we have to shine a light on what makes us perfect and kind of like hold each other accountable and address the things that make us kind of like it's not like the negative stuff. Like, like, for me, sometimes I might get too excited over something because of whatever, and people get scared by that. So I have to kind of who I am as a person sometimes, but not so much that I just become like a gray blob, go back, just take those blue pills from Matrix and just like, kind of be invisible sometimes, which I've been doing so much of my life. And a lot of the people in like the VFriends community, a lot of people in my regular life pulled me out of it. But I'm in an age where it almost feels like the shift is happening where everything my friends and family told me growing up, they're starting to believe it less and less. And I see it. And, I want them to just have that hope again and see again, like they were right. But then, they just need a little more time. Like, we'll probably never get there.
I get it.
In our lifetime, but it's really for the future, right? Like, we might not cure racism, diseases, or prejudice against stuff currently, but think about how much better it is now than it was even a couple of years ago. Even though, you know, there's a big light on hate right now, there's so much love that comes from it, right? And we have to try to stop staying silent when we know that the better way is out there, but our voices are smaller because we want to be humble, we want to be respectful. We have to figure out a way to kind of just push that instead of kind of like the of like hate and propaganda, in that, you know, it's so easy to prey on people's emotional fears that you can change their mindset on the blink of the blink of an eye. You know, the whole Trump presidency, it's a weird thing of, I just disconnected myself from it. I didn't think either way about it, because every time you bring up politics, it turns into this whole like weird argument where I'm not even trying to argue with them anymore, but they're still pushing the point on me. So it's one of these things where I see it's almost like the old generation with the new generation, and both sides are saying to each other, you don't see my point. I get everything you're saying, but they're not really.
There is no discussion, basically.
Yeah, there's no discussion.
Everyone talking,
yeah,
but nobody is listening. So
exactly, we have to build a community where, like, you know, it's not just so one-sided, because, you know, it does feel like kind of the more liberal mindset has this reputation of being like kind of, you know, hippies that don't, like, you know, go get a job, you know, like it's something like weird of like, you know, they are too idealistic. And sometimes it's true where it can be almost like a bad thing, right? And it takes some of the people that are next to them in that spectrum to pull them back a little bit. It's like, hey, you're going a little too far, right? Like, you're asking for way too much. Like, we can't even get like hate speech down on Twitter, and you're trying to change the world and, like, you know, snap a finger. It's not that fast. We have to put in the work. And sometimes it feels like the generation after ours, like, you know, we're kind of old now, where we're getting to the boomer age of like starting to be mad at everything, and have to get in that mindset of like, no, like the younger people, there's a lot of like bad, but it's not like because they really want to be, right? Sometimes they don't know any better. There's so many options that they feel like all of them are wrong, and their parents are just like hounding on them. It's like, why aren't you more impressive than the other kid? And you know, we have to find those people, help them understand what makes them special. But again, the older people that are in that mindset of like, I'm always right, and, you know, you don't know because I've lived longer than you, acknowledge that they lived so much, they learned so much, and tell them like, hey, you learned so much, genuinely share that with us. Share the good. Don't share the stuff where, you know, you're so successful, you have all this money now because, you know, you fucked over a bunch of people with like the economy, the like global warming and all that. Like, instead of putting all the blame on them, let's just figure out a way to kind of like pull ourselves out of it, right? And change people's mindset. And I know it's very impossible sounding, but I don't know, man. Like, I have that hope now. I've always said I had the hope previously, but now I actually believe it. And it's amazing when you put your life in perspective and realize how lucky you are, you know, and you compare it to other people that, like, you know, they've lost so much that like sometimes you can't even describe it. And sometimes you even get that guilt of like not suffering enough. And
but I would say that the way that you put that perspective on the world is to enable it, you know, with your space. My vision is that it's like the thing that you want to give to the world, it's materialized with your space, basically, right?
yeah, that's a small part of it. Like, I know realistically I can't really change the world from that. It's more of just like,
no, I mean, yes. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying that you will change the world with that, but I
Yeah.
mean, you want to bring good to the world, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
so with a tool.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's something that I feel like I've always had something to kind of give me hope and perspective, right? Whether it be technology, entertainment, like food, like, you know, the health and wellness stuff. Like, I honestly, like, I've only small part of my life like kind of dedicated myself to that, because I used to be very heavy, and then like heavy and short, but then I grew out and stretched out a little bit. So and I did like P90X, which is like a very popular workout thing.
Okay.
in the US. It's one of those like infomercials that like everybody just like bought into. But
Okay.
yeah, like I did that for a period of time, and I was like, oh, like, you know, this is good. But then, like, you know, once you stop, you get off that treadmill and you just never get back on until like you force yourself to again. So that health and wellness aspect, it's more for selfish reasons, honestly. It's like a little personal gym for me, and like, you know, hopefully the people that are good at these can come and help me expand on that. So it's a weird thing in that the space sounds very selfless, and I'm trying to help the world, but it actually comes from a lot of selfishness, right? Because it's just stuff that I like, and
Yes.
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
hoping it's almost like it's smarter to be selfish in that way, where you're having the rest of the world help build the community around stuff that you like. You know, build a community around health and fitness because I lack that. Build a community around like food and nutrition because I like that's one of the best things in the world to me, right? Like, you know, food can just bring happiness to people because when you put in the work for it, you kind of almost taste the love of like, you know, how much time and effort someone puts into it. And we're in an age where technology can make that so much easier. So that expedition, like, you know, like that move up, it's just going to be crazy, right? Like, you know, there's going to be so much blends of fusion in the world. There's going to be the traditionalist, which is like 100% fine, right? Like if you think about Japanese culture and cuisine, they dedicate their lives to one thing, and I love them for that. But they're sacrificing a little bit, right? They have to like let loose a little bit and have that creativity back in to kind of see how we can mash kind of different cultures together, figure out what works and what doesn't work. And even if it doesn't work, maybe it works for somebody. So yeah, like I don't know, like we talked about watching anime during VCon, and there's one that's called Food Wars where it's super sketchy. If like, you know, like if someone walks in on you watching it, but then it's actually like pretty funny, and like, you know, the food sometimes it just looks so amazing, and the
It's
techniques they talk
on
about.
Netflix.
I think it should be on Netflix, but
Okay.
it's very it's not, I don't know. Watch it by yourself first and determine if that's age appropriate for your kids, which I don't think you'll say it is. But it's one of those
I don't
weird
believe
shows.
so. I don't believe
Yeah,
so.
it's not like the Naruto kind of like family friendly, even though like Naruto could be kind of violent. It's more of like kind of I don't know, the more adult Netflix shows where you just have to go in with like an open mind and not be too whatever about it. But yeah, it's a pretty good show in that like they talk about like real techniques that like people. It's almost like the stuff you see on TikTok, right? You know, like
Okay.
it's shot down to 1 minute, but then when you go try it, it's like, oh, this is actually real and it's actually really good. So it's almost like all the stuff that you see on YouTube, TikTok, and stuff like that. You know, we could try it out at the space, right? You don't have to go to like a Michelin star restaurant to kind of experience it. We just test it out and find those different price points of like low end, high end. And I think that's why I'm so appreciative of growing up. I wouldn't say I was poor, but like, you know, I just didn't, it depends on who you ask, right? Like I was kind of like probably lower middle class, and I don't know how my mom did it raising like the three of us and bought a house and all that. It's just kind of crazy to think about, but I am able to appreciate the lower end things. Like, you know, I could eat a hot dog and not like, you know, feel like, oh, this is like, you know, shit on it for it being like boiled hot dog water or whatever. But even the high end stuff that you appreciate so much more when you know, the kind of like the level of quality that and determination that goes into it. So yeah, like this space, it's a reflection of myself and the stuff that I want to improve on,
Yes.
but also the stuff that I feel like made me who I am. And it's just so many different things, but everybody has these different things just at different levels. And I want to try to equalize a little bit. Like if you're suffering from cooking, you know, you're one of those people saying, I can't cook forever. My wife says that, right? And, you know, when we first met, she's like, I can't cook anything. I suck at it. But then now she's like, you know, the other day she's making like Korean kimbap and like just looking up recipes and like just trying it. And like just seeing that, it's amazing, right? I'm not really like forcing her to go to my space to do it. She's even doing it at home. So it's one of these things where you need that little nudge. And then once you start doing it and you just kind of go down that rabbit hole of like trying to perfect it and, you know, figure out how to do it better, that's where I see the space being. You know, like we don't have to be experts. We're all beginners. Hopefully we get a couple experts come in and like help point us in the right direction. But yeah, it's honestly like it's a place to people to figure shit out and do cool shit at the same time and meet cool people. That's it's as simple as that. But right now, the world is a little too skeptical. They're like, this is too good to be true. You're just gonna become like homeless by trying to save the world. But I think like for me, I know that it's not really true because I know how much like it will cost and like, you know, the money I put into it. It's there's no way in my head that I won't be able to at least break even and like, you know, be fulfilled doing it. Even if like I retire and this is my thing, I'm that crazy guy in that corner, like, you know, trying to push and like creativity on people. You know, I'm okay with that. You know, like I'm okay being the like, you know, local crazy uncle or like the crazy grandpa, like far in the future, you know. But it's just I want to meet the special people that, you know, still have the hope and the desire to live a fuller life and break the people that are stuck in this kind of rat race of like, you know, let me try to accumulate as much wealth and stuff and experiences and, you know, clout and like, you know, prestige over people and pull them back a little bit, saying that like you're missing the best parts. All the money in the world, you know, you can numb a lot of your problems away, but if you don't have these real connections, it's not going to mean a lot. And for me, I've always had these real connections, but I didn't know how to accept it. I didn't know how to take the positivity, and I kind of like push it away a little bit because I feel like I don't deserve it. And like once you change your mindset and start accepting it, take the good that you've been given and you've been blessed with and try to pass it on to someone else. You have that double layer of fulfillment where you don't only have like physical wealth, you have that kind of emotional and spiritual wealth.
Yes, it's more deep. It's more deep. Yes.
Yeah.
And basically
Yeah.
it's just being nice. Basically, it's to try
Simple as that, yeah.
yes, it's that.
It's common sense, right? You watch any movie, right? All the evil people usually like die or end up like very sad and alone, and all the happy people are like, you know, literally all the Disney movies, right?
Yes, it's
Like just, people just need to watch it and just like watch it a couple of times, and you see like all these different cultures. It's all the same. It's almost like generational, right? The previous generation doesn't understand you. The current generation is like, oh man, you don't see how special I am, but I'm not going to tell you because I'm so angsty and like you're not going to understand me anyway. So it's just like this weird thing of like we're all saying the same thing, but we it's almost like we're trying to convince people of the same thing, but a lot of us don't believe it ourselves, or there's a part of us that like, you know, you're not confident enough or you don't say it with enough conviction that, you know, people don't believe you. I've broken out of that mindset during VCon. Like after VCon, I got COVID and that negativity came back a little bit, just like talking to the real world people again. And that positivity kind of went away. But it's again, it's not a snap of the finger thing. You know, I've been spending my whole life being in this mindset and I have to slowly change it. And I've been figuring out how to start being like a regular person instead of being just this like gray blob of like nothingness that, you know, is scared of the attention because, you know, if someone puts that attention on you, you feel like you might disappoint them, or like, you know, you might change your opinion because they think you're weak or whatever, right? Like, you know, I'm glad that kind of alpha mindset, it doesn't have to go away, right? Because people are different. You know, mental health has been such a big thing the last couple of years, and I've been always a big ally of it, component of it, where I think it's really important, but I don't like practice it myself because of honestly procrastination. But I really I'm happy that it's in the news now, where you shouldn't think of mental health as some. It's just everybody has different levels of mental health. You know, some people are more aggressive. The movie Inside Out, you know, where it shows like different emotions. It's kind of like that, where, you know, everybody has different levels of that, and we have to figure out how to accept them for it. But also, like, if it's too much, like you have too much anger, alpha energy, figure out the kind of other side that brings it down, like, you know, the yin and yang kind of thing. Yes. It's kind of a good shot too. If you're like, you know, I've been saying like all of you to plan to pull me out. Like, you know, a lot of you were actually very important in pulling me out of that mindset. I have too much of this kind of positivity sometimes in my head that people think it's bullshit. So I just leave it in my head. But then it's almost like it's stuck in there, like waiting to explode. And, you know, when I let it out, it comes off in this like kind of weird raw emotion that makes people super uncomfortable, right? Like, you know, it's weird in that like VCon, people were like accepting of that energy. But in real life, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you like crying? We're just talking about like whatever, right? It's a really weird mindset. And I think once it's almost like, I don't want to say cult, but like that kind of mindset, right? Of we have to switch our mindset of working towards the same goal, right? Like a cult is seen as like, the thing where people go and like, go crazy and try to do something evil or like go kill themselves and drink Kool-Aid. But the word itself is just community, like, a community that believes in something. And there doesn't have to be like one grand leader. It should be just a cult of different personalities that can mesh well and figure out what are the best ways to do that. And that's why I think NFTs and blockchain and all that, if you ignore all the noise of like, people trying to make a quick buck and focus on, a lot of people are saying this now, like the community building, and empower people to kind of be that individual. It's almost like I see people as NFTs, not in that like weird kind of digital way, but more of like they're non-fungible. Like a person is so unique,
yes,
that it's impossible to replicate them. You can have twins, similar people, but they're never the same. They won't have the same mind. They won't think the same way. There's so much beauty in that, but when it's put in the wrong place, it can be really bad, right? And like if they have like too much power and have that like bad mental space, it's definitely scary. And like, I think a lot of people right now are equating that to like a lot of the wars between like the world powers of just prioritizing being the best over doing what's best for the world. And again, we're kind of like at the low point, right? Like last couple of years, like I think pretty much the last 5 to 10 years has been just going straight up after the financial crisis, like the mortgage crisis, I guess, like in 2018, we were such a low point, right? And I didn't even know that, right? I was a kid. I was just like watching TV, playing video games, and I saw in the news, but I just never really thought about it too much. And it's just been going up, right? Like technology has been going up, people has been going up. Like we had such highs that as shitty as COVID is, it made us hit rock bottom, and it showed us how
give a space. Basically, COVID give a space to people to think.
Yeah, to
because
appreciate,
on
right?
day to day, you don't have time to think. You
Yeah,
are just, it's the rat race, as you name it already. So
yeah, it's amazing because like it's so simple, but like we just don't think about it. And I was 100% one of those people, like during the whole like Facebook Cambridge Analytica thing, I just heard about the words, but I didn't know what it was, and took Netflix to make a really good documentary about it. It was like, oh my god, there's propaganda and all this other that like you read about in the textbooks and stuff like that. Like that's happening again, but like through Twitter and like memes. That's crazy. Like that's not real. Like what is QAnon? Like it's these things where once you start realizing, like, oh, I've been giving the world a little too much credit, and then thinking that like we're all kind of individually working towards the same goal of bringing the world to a better place. But I think we're just so diverged away from each other that we need kind of like a meeting point again to kind of refocus. Like it's okay to go on it alone, but then it shouldn't be you in a kind of like endless void of a desert. You should have people around you that like, it's like you gotta ask them like, hey, am I going the right direction? Like you just see this kind of endless sand desert, right? Like, are you actually going to the place you want to go to, right? Or you're just like going to walk off a cliff. So it's kind of, I don't know, my mind sometimes go into these like crazy scenarios because it's just, I don't know, like I feel like the world right now just needs to stop and think and kind of reevaluate what makes them happy. And as long as it doesn't hurt people too much, and like depending on what way, right? Because no matter what you do, it's probably going to, someone's going to have a problem with it. Just do it in a way where you try to be genuine about it as much as possible. And hopefully people see through that instead of the awkwardness or the kind of anxiety that a lot of people don't kind of get past, right? And then they do something like super dark, like it's like I came back from VCon and in the news, like an 18-year-old kid just shoots up a school and kills a bunch of children. And it's stuff like that where you can't even think about it too much, because if you do, you go to a dark place and like think like, oh man, this world sucks, and you just it's not ignoring it, but you try to grieve, take your time to grieve, but at the same time try not to let it hold you down forever. Because like whenever I think about like all the sad things of like, you know, how I'm okay one day dying, like, you know, like I think I've been so scared of dying most of my life that I haven't really lived a full life. But I'm kind of at a place where I'm so grateful for my experiences and everything that I've had, and just the people in my life, that I think like if I die tomorrow, I will be at peace with it. But my only concern is like the sadness that it leaves behind. I worry about my wife, worry about my family.
That makes sense. But what I would say, it's you know, Gary would say, you are so young, you have so much time, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, the things that I want to do is to flip a little bit, because I would say that if Gary was in front, you know, on the call, he will already flip that on the mindset of you have time, you know, you have time to make that happen. So I want to flip that a little bit. And what I want to ask is, what could you say about this little cat? I don't know if people saw that. You know, you at Beacon, you bring a lot of physical airdrop, the way you call it.
Yeah.
What could you say about that?
So it's pretty much like 3D printing, right? It's one of these things where a lot of us hear about it, but then we just assume that we know. And I was one of those people where I think I had one 3D printer, probably around, I don't remember when I bought it, but then I think 2019 was when I only had one. And then I printed it out. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you make really cool things. But then you start kind of going down that rabbit hole and seeing how amazing it is and the brilliant minds around it. So right now, it's actually super simple too, in that whatever you think, right? Think of like Microsoft Paint. They have like software now that it's a little more complex, and there's a lot of features, but you can create things digitally and then print it out physically. So if you want to make a box, you just set the dimensions for the box and you print it out physically. So that cat you had, it's actually in the 3D printing community called the qu'il cat. It's a calibration cat where you just print it to figure out your printer is calibrated correctly.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like so this thing, it's like the test page, you know, on the regular printing.
Yeah, that's the tolerance, right? If it comes out like a piece of, it means your printer, there's something probably wrong with it.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Good. So like, let me show, like, I actually have like a lot. If you see, hold on one second. So now they just recently came out with like a calibration dragon. So it's like, this is like
oh, it's way bigger. It's way bigger.
No, it's way bigger, right? But then that's the magic of 3D printing, right? It could be this big, but it could also be like super tiny. So that like you don't need, it just need like to tell you just need the code to say make it bigger, and you're not really writing the code. You're just like, it's almost like you're drawing in Microsoft Paint, or there's a thing to zoom in, zoom out. So yeah, like if you see this, like this little squirtle, right? Like I passed out a bunch of these. This is actually this is supposed to go to Corso, one of the mods. Yes. And like, you know, I keep like at first I think when I went into the community, I was hoping to not infiltrate, but then like get Gary's attention to say like, hey, can you help me like get this off the ground and like, you know, figure out a way to make it work. So I was like talking to Corso a lot because it's one of those mods that like did a lot of work early on, even though he wasn't a full mod. And, you know, I just saw kind of how smart he was and like his level of like commitment and energy. Yeah, I was trying to like, I guess, befriend him, and like he was really into Squirtle. So I was like, hey, like I have this giant Squirtle, you know, like whenever you come to New York, because he lives in, I don't want to say where he lives, but he lives a little further away. Yes. And, you know, I was like, oh, just come by and like grab it. And I'm a little sad that I wasn't able to track him down during VCon, and I ended up like giving away all these like 3D prints out, and it confused a lot of people, right? Because I think people, they know about 3D printing, but then when they see it physically, they're like, oh, this is so cool. And like, here's another couple of cool things of, you know, like this like shape, right? It's so tiny and everything like that, but it's just like, it looks amazing. And there's like things like these where this, you know, it's printed in place where, you know, it's just printed correctly in that it can do stuff. So it's kind of like a fidget spinner. Like it's just like, it's like it's almost like you're applying math and physics to real world things, and it
But
feels like you need to
you know what you should do? You should do TikTok content about that.
no,
You
no,
know, to spread their awareness around this thing.
yeah, but it's one of those things where like there's so much content out there already, but because we're stuck in the same right now, I think like a lot of Web 2.0 has been focused on how can I get your eyeballs on the screen 24 hours a day. So whatever you like, they'll have algorithms to pull you to see of the same kind of content. But like right now, I have so much like 3D printing content like targeted at me because like I've been watching videos. Okay. So it's almost like YouTube is the reason why I get so passionate about things, because you see something cool, and then you start like playing around with it, and then like you see how much bigger than it actually is, and you understand how simple the concepts are. Yeah, so like for me, like again, the content thing, it's something that I've always been procrastinating because I'm not good at being in front of camera. I'm not good at like scripting stuff, you know.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not talking about in front. You know, it's really about because here it's there is a physical thing. You know, if you document the full thing, you know, and you know, like the first part it's the thing, and after there is the building of the thing. You know, I do believe that that should work on TikTok.
And I'm trying to say it's a skill that I need to work on, because the people that put the videos up already, it's really super high quality. They have so much determination. They have like a script. They have like, you know, cameras recording hours and hours of content, and they edit it. Like for me, like whenever I try to record something, it's just me like, you know, doing nothing for an hour. You know, like or like, you know, when people tell me to record.
Yes, it's like it's easy for you to do so. So
I could do, but I can't. I'm really bad at documenting because I don't know what to document, because I'm just like I'm hyper focused on like the wrong thing sometimes, and I kind of it's almost like when for me like the ADHD that I've kind of like learned to kind of even like I learned it this year that I had it, how to cope with it. But like for me, it's almost like everything is like I'm looking for that stimulation, right? It's a deficiency in dopamine, so it's easier for me to get bored. So then like I'll lose focus on different things. So when there's too much out there, when I need to document it, I'll document the wrong thing, because I was like, oh, this is special. No, this is special. This is special. So it's almost like my biggest struggle now is that I'm trying to change the world by myself, and I know that it's not possible. So I need the people that are good at these things to kind of help me. Like part of me don't actually want to do it, and I hope that like, you know, whoever's good at it can just do it for me, right? But then I do know that I have to kind of put in the work so that I can convince those people.
Let's talk about what are your needs. You know, what are your actual needs about the visions that you try to create?
I think a little bit it's to know how to present what you have without coming off like as a pretentious. Because I think for me, like to focus on what I say, sometimes my tone sounds very like kind of bland and direct. I think that's a problem with a lot of people, that sometimes you feel so much that you have to tone it down so that regular people can understand it. And when you tone it down, the focus turns into kind of like a pretend, like, you know, like the way I'm saying it, like people don't listen to what I say, they listen to how I'm saying it, because I'm putting so much work to try to focus in and say it correctly, and not politically correctly, just like so that like I could get what is in my mind and come out correctly. So I think I have to work on that to convince people that, like, you know, I'm not full of it. And it took a lot for me to kind of even take that step to share with you guys. Like honestly, like a lot of the Zoom calls that we do, I still have like a little bit of this anxiety of like, I don't want to overtalk people. I don't want to, you know, try to make it about me. But then I do kind of want to like say my points and make it about me sometimes. And I struggle with that balance of, you know, it's almost like I feel like I have to explain myself and, you know, make people feel bad for me, so I think it get that attention. But once that attention comes on me, it's like, oh, I have to say something now. And like, you know, that kind of fear overtakes in your mind, kind of gets flooded, and, you know, it comes off as this kind of like crazy rant again. So yeah, I think that's personally what I have to develop on. And, you know, talking to you guys, like even doing this, right? Like this is probably my first official,
yes, interview,
like, whatever this is. Like this is my
yes.
first thing, right? Like,
yes, okay.
Like I was saying, like even if no one watches it, it's still terrifying. So I need to work on that. I need to find the special people that are good at things and make them believe in me. That, like, you know, I'm not trying to take advantage
do
of their
everything.
skills. I just need to. I need to know, how can you be a part of my vision? In that, it doesn't only help me, it helps you and it helps others. You know, that triple win of helping everybody, but not putting a lot of effort. I'm a big component of like low effort and high results. And we're at an age where technology can take away a lot of that effort that we don't need to do, right? It's like cooking, right? Like, you know, chopping things into 100 pieces. Yes, it's good to have those nice skills to do that, but some people might hate that, right? So then, you know, use mandolins, use like, you know, the gadgets that you see on TV, and like, you know, don't, you know, like it's almost like find those shortcuts to get through all the noise of like what, it's almost like the hard work that scares people away. Figure out the hard work that matters, and put in work into that, and the stuff that doesn't matter, that's kind of just like to break you down, you know, for you to fully commit, try to tweak that in a way that, like, you know, it doesn't drive half of the audience away. So yeah, like I think right now is I need a community, right? I'm trying to build a community, but then I'm just a community of like two, me and my wife, and my wife doesn't even come by. So then it's just a community of one most of the time.
But by the way, you are talking about community. Did there is an event plan, you know, on your space? When
I
it's
try to
the
yeah,
first event?
so I think I still struggle with putting myself out there because I keep on trying to do everything by myself. So whenever I've had several events, it's mostly just like I've had like almost like 6 grand openings now, right? And like, you know, I had like my wife, like we had our bridal shower with my wife. We had, you know, she had a couple of small events, but those just ended up becoming things where it's like a party where people come, they show up, they eat, they leave. And I don't know how to kind of get everybody's attention. It's like, hey, let's do this, because I'm not confident enough in that kind of way. So I need to figure out how to build a team that will work beside me and, you know, respect me enough to not take advantage of me, and understand that I won't take advantage of them. And if that starts happening, kind of address it and don't sweep it under the rug. And I think there's not a lot of people that I naturally feel comfortable doing that with, because it always feels like this weird negotiation where, you know, if I show them my cards all the way, they might just like take advantage. And it's happened to me so many times that like I've always had to kind of this weird kind of game of like, you know, pretending that you're weaker than you are, just so that you can show them how much, you know, the growth that, like, you know, you're capable of achieving. Because when you show too much to somebody, and they feel like it's too good to be true, they just get weirded out by it, and they just kind of like, you know, disappear into the background. And then, you know, I don't want to end up texting them like 5 times, like, hey, where are you? You know, like you kind of becoming that kind of crazy attached person.
Okay. Regarding community, you know, I just had an idea. You know, NFT NIC is going to come at the end of June. What about creating a satellite event? You know, because I know that they are doing satellite event
actually, Emil also like suggested that. So like I've been trying to do that. So right now I'm dealing with I'm trying to fix up the physical renovation stuff as quickly as possible, and hopefully I can get a couple of people to throw a satellite event, because like for me it sucks because I really wanted to, but then I have a wedding in Hawaii during NFT NYC, so I can't physically be here. But I'm actually doing like a Cousins Day thing where I'm hoping that I can get all my, you know, angsty cousins to come together and like, you know, throw an event, you know, kind of play all the games, you know, use this technology and help me set it up together, and maybe throw that satellite event, or maybe get one of the Hawks or a couple of the Hawks to just come together and then throw a satellite event there. But but
yes, you can do so as well. You can do so as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So I think that's the thing of like I don't know how to ask. You know, like I don't. It's a big commitment, right? Like because
But also, what you can do as well, it's you know, we can't bring all the refrain community all together in one place. I met at least 2, 3 people living at New York, so maybe you can put, you know, a message on the refrain, you know, as who is
yeah,
living at New York, let's connect, and boom, you start the thing from here, you know.
yeah. That's why like it's stuff like this like you talking to me now. It's that push that I need. That like to. It's almost like for me, I need that little bit of positive reinforcement. Because sometimes when you don't, it's so weird that like people don't, a lot of people have trouble believing in themselves, but when someone else tells them to do it, it's like, oh, I can do it now. Like, you know, like that's why I was so good at my jobs previously, because my boss told me what to do and I didn't want to disappoint them. So I just went super hard and, you know, worked really hard without a lot of guidance from them. And I became like super self-sufficient. So I've been such a kind of like independent person. But no one really realizes that because I don't know how to also like claim credit for stuff. That's also why I kind of got laid off, right? It's weird because like I was trying to push for the people that have been there longer to get promoted, and then I ended up getting that guy promoted to be my boss, and then just cut me because I was technically making more money than them, and like there's
Yes,
you know,
okay.
when that happens, like I was like this is kind of what I wanted, but then it's also like now how to explain I just got laid off, and people are gonna think I'm like a bum.
But basically, you don't have to explain that. Basically, it's a
Yeah,
fact, and you know it's that
yeah,
come from your experience. And the only thing that you need to remember, it's you always try to do the good thing. You know.
yeah,
So yes, it's what I believe.
yeah.
Did
But
there
yeah, like
is any? Excuse me.
yeah, I was gonna say like hopefully I like it's a little scary now that like you know if someone watches this now they're gonna like hey where's your event going on, but like I'm going to I need to figure out that the balance of the rules right because there's a lot of the legality things that like someone slips and fall at the place then like you know did I like if does my insurance cover something like that, so yeah like that scared me a lot too because I had to deal with like insurance because last year like shortly after I bought the space I actually was supposed to rent it out to somebody and had a 5-year lease planned and like you know everything was going to be paid off but then you know they kept on delaying it and the day that I was supposed to sign the lease Hurricane Ida hit
Yes.
and flooded all of Queens and like destroyed the property and I had to deal with insurance and like the fear of like holy shit I just ruined my life, but then you know navigating that and just like you know thankfully I was you know focusing my kind of ADHD into figuring out insurance and I had enough of a concept to navigate through that in a good way in that you know yes it sucked that my property got destroyed and I'm still fixing up all those things but on the bright side I have renovations now right it might look a little better than what it was before so I need to kind of figure out the rules so that I don't do something accidentally illegal. I think that's the scary thing about NFT space, the NFT space also, in that like a lot of stuff it's new ground, right? So like if they decide to change the rule on you, what happens later on? Even like with like Gary and the book game stuff, you know, for tax purposes, if I'm burning these NFTs, like is that a taxable event? I don't know. I don't think IRS knows. I don't think anybody knows because it's almost like it's almost like a video game of you know there are no rules and the rules are going to come after but we're all playing this game together.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, like I think for NFT NYC, I want to showcase some of the cool things in the world and hopefully inspire these people to whatever they're doing in their life, see if they can NFT it. And I think like that's the thing. I'm not one of those people that are looking for the next horse to back per se. I want to find these horses to realize their potential and just watch them
Go.
win, right? Like
Yes.
it's
Get
not a
it. Get
race
it.
against each other. You know, it's a
You
race
are
together.
an enabler. You are an
Exactly.
enabler, and it's what
Especially,
you want to do with your space. And I
yeah,
totally get your vision. I
yeah. That's
totally
what I'm saying.
get it.
Like an old grandma. Like you know, like that's what's crazy. Like at VCon, right? Like you know, there's a lot of people like my grandma's age that like their energy is so infectious that like I didn't even know they had huge communities behind them. You know, like Emil, met a couple, and like, I'm just standing there talking to them. I was like, this is so weird. Like, I wish I could talk to my, grandparents like this, that there wasn't this kind of like weird energy, and like, they're showing what's great about them. So right now it feels like it's still kind of in this weird community building, but there's no real community behind it. The community is like, how can I make the most money as fast as possible? And then like, for me, it's not really about that. It's let's build a community around that and create it, like whatever NFT community that's created by that, make that the focal point, not making money. Making money is great. That should be kind of like a 20% part of it to me. It should be 80% of figuring out how you can trade your passion to someone else so that you can have a new fan, like someone in your corner. Whether it be like, I don't know, wrestling, MMA, sports, like football, like soccer is such a big thing in Europe, but like it's such a small thing here in terms of like it's dominated by other kind of sporting events. But it took me, there's a show on Apple TV called Ted Lasso for me to kind of appreciate a little bit of like soccer, football, in that like it's not really about, that one person, Messi, that headliner. It's about the team of how, same thing with basketball. Like, I've always been someone who played, but I was never a person that watched. And it's something where it took my my brother-in-law to kind of bring the energy, that excitement of why everybody loves it so much. Where I never probably would have watched a game because I didn't want to spend like $40 on doing that. But then it's kind of like stupid in that, like, I was so closed off from that aspect. So yeah, like community build get around passions and try to make it sustainable in a price point that would work. And NFTs, blockchain, it gives us the opportunity to decentralize it in that you don't need that kind of person to, like, the company to do it for you, where they'll take, like artists, where they'll take huge commissions. Like I think I've watched a couple of things saying how artists that sell stuff for millions of dollars at auction house, sometimes they don't even get any of that. They're like, it all goes to the auction house, and the artist just gets like a small percentage. They don't get any of the royalties. So it's just crazy in that, like, people think crypto, blockchain, all this stuff is about how can I back the next internet and where should I put my money into it. But I think once people start realizing they just need to put themselves into it. Like for this community center, like I get a little fearful of like associating with NFTs because I don't want that negativity to pull down the kind of concept of the community building. But it's a perfect thing for it, right? Because if someone wants to do something, they could just offer a class as an NFT, as a redemption, right? That's just like a proof of purchase, instead of just walking up and like into a shady corner and it's like, hey, do you want to come and do this thing? It's a little bit of accountability. And eventually I see it kind of being like Ubers or Yelp reviews, where people can start building around communities and just telling their experiences and have a little bit of criticism, hopefully out of love and not hate. And, the communities use that criticism and make it better. It's like, instead of trying to back the next Facebook, we should all be trying to create the next Facebook of how can you out of that you love.
But I would say that next Facebook, can be scary for people. It can be very inspiring for some, but that it's not forced to be.
It's on a very small scale.
Yes,
I think
it's like you can do like your own version of Facebook.
Yeah, like Discord servers, right? Like it's just. I think the thing is, we need the very technical, smart people. Like I met so much of them, and like like right there, JDM Labs. I don't really normally wear caps, but then Mikey, like he was a like an OG hawk. He was doing clubhouses in the beginning. Like Russell, man, like Aunt C was there. I just remember like we just used to just like talk, and he, put so much effort into kind of how and he helped people give back, and this is part of it, right? Like it's something where he's helping people dip their toes into the NFT space by brand creation, marketing, a little bit of the technical stuff, And you know, like I'm promoting this, but then at the same time, like I don't even like have. I feel like I can't even ask him because I'm scared that like, you know, he has too much going on. It's weird in that sometimes when people move up so much that you feel like you're not on the same level anymore, you don't know how to talk to them anymore. I think Alex is another example where he had like 16 million followers already coming into this, right? So he was already a superstar, but then, you know, Gary pushed him to the next stratosphere and he starts partnering and making content with like real partners. Like, you know, he shot like celebrities, he did brand, but he's still doing his thing that makes him special by just going up to regular people and making them kind of like the focus, kind of like how what you're trying to do also with this podcast format. But then in your head, you get a little bit of that self-doubt of like, I am nobody compared to them, so I don't want to bother them. I want to make myself get to the same level before I start approaching them. And I still struggle with that, right? Just the whole self-doubt thing. So I need to focus enough to create a kind of presentable thing to show people so that when they don't come here, they just look at my space as like this crazy mess of a thing that's like a super cluster that they don't want to deal with because it's going to suck so much of their time. Yeah, so it's that weird thing of like, you know, being a perfectionist, I guess, even though it's, you know, not really. It's almost like being perfectionist without fully doing the work. And I'm going to try to do that by NFT NYC. Hopefully I can get a couple of people to, you know, join in with me on this vision. But yeah, this is one of the things that needed to kind of kick me out of like a little bit of that funk. Yeah, I'm so thirsty. Give me a second and drink some more. I'm like talking about stuff.
It's good. I'm going to do several things. So the first thing is I want to do a little shout out to Louca Silvant. I hope that I say your name very well. I didn't saw that you put hello on the chat. So you are. It seems that you are watching that right now on LinkedIn. So shout out to you. And the next thing it's we are going to end the podcast. So in a short way, what you can say to someone about network social?
I think figure out what makes you happy, and you know, if you can figure what, you know, whatever that makes you happy, if you know the reason why it makes you happy, I'm hoping that you can reach out and help me help shine a light on whatever that is, whether it's you, that community, that topic. I just want to, you know, shine a light on these things because I have a lot of stuff that I kind of want to share with people, but it's really hard coming from someone that, you know, has trouble believing in themselves. So I want to be the person that believes in you enough to shine that. Like, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, let me try to help that. And it's really hard to kind of put that out there, right? Because it's really scary in that, like, you know, people might say like, oh, you promised me this, give me $1 million to, like, you know, fund my dream or whatever. I don't know how difficult something is, but, you know, I want this to be a testing place. So if you're passionate, simple, if you're passionate about something, reach out and help me bring that into the light so that more people can realize what makes it special. And hopefully you can join me on that journey, whether it be as a customer, as a partner, as a community member. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm ready to start going now and looking for the people to kind of trek that journey with me and figure it out together.
Perfect. And people have to contact you on Instagram, this account? It's good? Yes?
Yeah, it's not a lot of followers, honestly. So it's one of these things I need to start
mean
on. So reach out on Instagram. I'm gonna try to be active on socials a little more. It's weird in that, like, I don't know. I feel like I don't have anything important to say. That's why I don't say anything. But like, you know, you guys tell me differently. But it's that mindset thing of like, you and a lot of people in my life that gave me the positive reinforcement the last couple of weeks has kind of pushed me to realize that I'm a lot better than I give myself credit for. And I have to kind of thank the people that got me here. my friends, my family, the people that never gave up on me, but like they were so concerned about me that they had a hard time fully believing in me and understanding me. I want to bridge the gap between these new people and old people and see how amazing everybody can be. And it's I think that's a good endpoint, because I'll go on forever if we
Yes, thank you so much. You know, it was a fun discussion with you. I hope that people are going to know you more, and will be you know, triggered to go you know, watch your space, discover all the room, and be curious about I don't know if the health space, if the tech space, whatever the space. But basically, I hope that that will trigger people to go find you in New York. And thank you again for your time. And
oh, thank you. This is amazing.
yes, and it's the end of the episode. I'm going to stop the live in 5 seconds. And again, Wilson, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.